Okay, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us on the patient story today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we're really excited to be able to hear more about your story. So let's dive right into it.
Okay.
I know this all happened. You're young. Talk to us about how old you were when you started to first feel symptoms or something was off.
So my story, I think it might be a little different than what you expected. I actually didn't have any symptoms. I have a genetic mutation called CDH1. And so I had a really high, over an 80% chance compared to the normal person of having stomach cancer. And I have over a 60% chance of having breast cancer compared to the normal person. And it also, I have an increased risk of colon and ovarian cancer as well. So I actually had biopsies done and they came back clear. I decided to get my stomach removed at a young age as a preventative surgery. I actually didn't know I had cancer going into the surgery. I had a biopsy done 3 months before my procedure and it came back completely clear for no cancer was found. It wasn't until after I had done the preventative surgery and they had actually took they cut apart my stomach completely and they found stage 1 cancer in 3 places. So I didn't have any symptoms at all. I did this completely as a preventative action. Luckily I did. So I didn't know.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I'd love to talk more about that.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, we're doing little reset of scenery, but
Yeah.
so you were telling us, Lauren, about you were doing preventative measures. So
Yeah.
actually, let's go through that. So when did you find out about the marker, and then yeah, how many times did you have to go in for a biopsy, or what procedures did you have to do regularly?
I found out about it when I was 22, I believe. So that would have been 2016. I found out in 2015. I'm sorry. 2015, I found out that I had the genetic mutation CDH1. I had to go in for a biopsy on my stomach once a year. I had 3 total before I finally got the procedure done. That doesn't add up time-wise. No, it does. Yeah.
It does.
It does. Yeah, so I had 3 biopsies leading up to my stomach removal, and then every year I have to get an MRI, and depending on the results of the MRI for my breast, I have to either get an ultrasound, and I've actually had to get a breast biopsy as well because they do every 6 months. I get testing on my breasts also, just because I have such a high chance of getting breast cancer. So
Yeah, and Lauren, how did you know that you had this? Was it the CDH1 or?
CDH1, yeah, it is CDH1. My mom found out she had it actually. Uh, we had a genetic counselor reach out to us because cancer was really prevalent in our family. My grandma had breast cancer at 29, so that was a big red flag for them. They actually thought we had the BRCA gene, which my mom tested negative for. And so they went off on a whim and they were like, hey, we have this one test and it's really, really rare and you probably don't have it, but we're going to test you for it because it was very new at the time. Not many people, I think we were the first people my genetic counselor had ever tested positive for. And so my mom tested positive and she was told that each of her children had a 50% chance of having it. And so when I turned 18, or I was already over 18 at the time, I went and got the test done. My brother tested negative and me and my sister, we tested positive.
Can you run us through that genetic test? What goes into it?
Basically, they call you into an office and you spit in a tube, and that's it.
Do you remember how long it took to get the results?
It took, I want to say, like, not long. It didn't take long. I was a little upset because I got the results over the phone from the counselor when she told me that they would call me in to tell me the results. And since I tested positive, it was a very traumatic experience. But it took about 2 weeks, I think, after getting the test done that I was told it was positive. So.
Wow. So, and like you, I got my cancer diagnosis over the phone too. It's something people don't really think about. Can you
Yeah.
walk us through what that was like?
Um, Well, my mom had actually just had her stomach removed, literally, I would say like 2 weeks before I got the news. So one of her stitches had come undone and she had to go back to Johns Hopkins to get it fixed. And I was in my bedroom. I got the call. I called her and I just was screaming. And I do take anxiety medication. I took more than I'm prescribed at the time, and I put myself to sleep, basically. Um, it was very hard to take in, and thinking about that day is it's hard. It was bad.
Of course. I mean, it's like a nightmare to have to deal with something like that. You're told it's so rare. You probably don't
Yeah.
have it. Your expectations probably weren't that what the call.
Well, I also knew my brother had just tested negative for it, so I was very like hopeful and positive of thinking there's no way like I have it. There's no way, absolutely not, definitely not. And they kept emphasizing in the meetings with the genetic counselor how life changing it would be if I had it. And I just watched my mom get her stomach removed, and I knew I would have to do that too. And my mom, her removal was agonizing for her. I watched her beg the doctors to kill her when she woke up from her surgery because she didn't get a nerve block or an epidural. She chose not to. And so I was very traumatized after seeing my mom like that. And then once I got the news that I would have to go through that too, it was almost too much for me to handle. And I almost thought about dropping out of college. I thought about a lot of like really negative things. I went into like a deep depression because I knew what the future held for me, and I just didn't know if I could handle it.
right. I forgot you're at the time. I mean, you're a college student.
Yeah.
Were you in your first, second, third year?
I was in my, well, I actually stayed an extra semester because I took half a semester off unrelated to this, but it was my junior year
Okay.
that I found out. So I still had a good amount of time to go. I think I had 3 semesters left. So I had my whole senior year, and because this was over break that I found out. I think it was, it might have been summer break I still had at least 2 semesters of college. At least. I want to say 3. And so I very much thought about dropping out at the time. It
How
was a
did Yeah. How did you end up processing this, you know?
I actually spoke with one of my professors in school that I was close with, and I actually didn't see a therapist. I tried to on campus, but they turned me away because they thought my story was too unique, because it was they were training therapists. Essentially, the therapy program they had on campus, they wouldn't take me in because they felt like my story was too complex, and so that hurt to be turned away from therapy. So like I said, I take anxiety medication. I just compartmentalized it. I didn't think about it. I worked really hard in school. Shockingly, I got a 3.8 GPA that following semester. I don't know, I just grinded, and
Yeah.
I didn't think about it, or I tried not to, and if I did, I just would spiral, so I just avoided the whole thought about it.
For people who are watching now who maybe are at that time, like they've just found out that they've tested positive for something, like
Right.
this, any advice or guidance on how you wish you would have processed it or something you think might help?
Um, how honest is this interview?
Yeah, I mean, be honest, definitely be honest.
Don't turn to stuff that's going to alter your mind, like pot, stuff like that. It's not the solution. Anxiety medication is not the solution because you can get addicted to it. I definitely recommend, even though it hurts, looking at the groups on Facebook and looking for people who have the mutation through Instagram and stuff like that, because I actually blogged after my surgery, and so many people around my age have come to me like thanking me for talking about it. And if I had just read the stories instead of just seeing what my mom went through, because I based a lot of my fear on just her surgery, I wish that I could have gone back and actually talked to somebody my age who had gone through it and had a much more positive experience, and realized that you will be okay, and it will be okay. And it's not the end of, it's not the end. It seems like it, and it's really hard for someone to tell you that it's gonna get better, because I didn't listen to anybody telling me it was gonna get better. I didn't listen to my mom. I didn't listen to my boyfriend, who's now my husband. I didn't listen to anybody. And I just altered my mind a lot. I smoked a lot of pot, and I partied, and I wish that I hadn't really done it. I mean, I do think that I put a lot of work into school, which was a positive thing, but that's the only positive thing I can think of really that I did afterwards. And I just think that I regret a lot of that. And I think that, reaching out to those sources, it may be scary because you're hearing like someone might say, hey, my I don't know, brother died from it. And that's terrifying to hear, because with this specific cancer, it grows in the lining of your stomach. So they can't find it in biopsies most of the time. So you're really playing like Russian roulette, and that's terrifying. And so you kind of have to make a decision. I mean, if you want to get the surgery done early, like that's great, but definitely use those resources like online, like
Right.
talk to people.
Reach out
Don't,
to the community, your
yeah,
community.
don't
Yeah.
hide away. Don't literally just, don't ignore it, because I did, and it just made the time when I went into the surgery so much worse.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Lauren. Really appreciate it. And people are, who are watching this video or reading your interview now, they have you to look to. So that's really bright, a bright light for them. I'm hoping. And so let's go back to what you were going through. So you find out you have this CDH1, your
Mhm.
sister too, and
Yeah.
what was the next thing that you had to do?
So basically, I met up with doctors at Johns Hopkins. That's where my mom had her surgery, and we just kind of decided that those were the doctors we were going to go with. And also we went through a company called Inova. They're the ones that did my genetic testing, actually. And I found an oncologist, and I found a gastrointestinal doctor, and I started getting the screening done pretty immediately.
You remember around like how much time had passed before your first screening?
I had my first MRI within, I would say, like 2 months after I found out that I tested positive.
Okay. So every year you would get, you do still get a breast MRI done, also ultrasound, but then for
Yeah,
the,
they switch it off each every 6 months, because it's a lot of radiation,
okay,
or I guess something involving the MRI machine's not good for you if you're so
okay,
young. So they'll do an MRI once a year, and then 6 months later, if everything looks good, they'll just do an ultrasound of the area. I've only had one breast biopsy done. Um,
okay. And then for your stomach, that was another heightened cancer risk was
it
gas.
was, yeah, they were more worried about my stomach than anything. The breast, they were like, that can wait a little bit. We're more worried about your, like, getting your stomach out like now.
Can you describe what they had said, why they were so concerned?
Yeah. Basically the meeting went like this. I walked in, and me and my sister were in there, and I was still pretty young. I think I was around 24, or maybe, no, I was 23, maybe almost 24. So I was getting, we walk into the hospital, and my sister had already found out she was positive. She was with me, and my mom was there. And basically they told us, they said, we are worried about you getting your stomach out right now. They were like, your breast, that's a lot more easily detectable. But since this cancer grows in the lining of your stomach, a lot of the time when they catch it, it's too late. Like you're more than likely going to die, which when someone's telling you you're going to die, it's pretty terrifying. So in the meeting, I'm crying, obviously. And they just said straight up, well, the doctor said straight up, you're gambling your life every year that goes by that you don't get your stomach removed, because it is that serious with this mutation. They said that they had found cancer in patients as young as 16 years old who had this gene. So age doesn't really matter is what they were saying. They said your age, you can be whatever age, but they were very, very concerned and pushing very hard for me to get my stomach removed, even though it was something I wanted to do when I was 30.
Wow. Okay. I gotcha. That's a lot to take in. I can't even imagine what it felt like in that office that day. And it was it because of your mom's history that they were so concerned about the stomach?
They were concerned in general. I mean, my mom did have stomach cancer. When they removed her stomach, her biopsies came back clear, and she had cancer in multiple places and a tumor. So they didn't detect any of that. And they also were very concerned just because with this gene, they have had experiences with patients who have had cancer as young as their early 20s, even teens. And so they didn't care how old we were. My sister was 19, 18 in that meeting. They didn't care. They were saying the same thing to her that they were to me. So
Oh,
age was not a factor.
so you're sitting there with your sister, and what they're basically telling you is you can get biopsies done to check, but the cancer is in the lining, so it's really hard to detect. You might as well just remove your stomach.
Yeah. Yeah, they were basically saying, I mean, you can go and get all the biopsies you want, but they'll probably come back clear because it's really hard to find. And once they find it, it's too late because it's moved out of the lining of your stomach and started to spread. And my mom was a prime example that that's happened. I mean, I still thought I was so young. I was like, there's no way. There's no way I have cancer. I'm so young. Like, how is that possible? But I do remember there was one person I had come across, and the only reason I came across her was because she was Miss Texas for the USA pageant, and she has the same mutation as me. They found the cancer in her actually through a biopsy when she was 24, and she got her stomach removed in time. But her story stuck out to me because she was so young. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, that, because my mom had it done when she was in her 40s. She was 46. So I thought there was no way I had to get it done this early. Why would I get it done this early? But there was examples, and the doctors were really pushing it like hard. They were very, very pushy about me getting it done. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're the reason I got it done, but they're pretty much the reason I got it done.
Right. And so with such a heavy decision, how did they describe, how did you process sort of, okay, why you wouldn't want to get your stomach taken out? Like, so the two options are leave it in, get biopsies, but you'll probably get it at some time, or take it out. Yeah. So what were the pros and cons of both?
So obviously a con is you could get cancer and you could suffer and then you could die. And I just watched my Uncle Jimmy, who also had the gene. He had just gotten through a really long time of suffering with stomach cancer, and he died right before I had made my decision. So I had just watched him suffer. That was a huge con. I didn't want cancer, obviously. I mean, that's terrifying. Um, the pro was I'm young. They repeatedly said that, you're young, you'll bounce back quick, is what they said, pretty much. So I knew that if I was going to get it done at a young age or get it done at all, I would probably want to do it when I'm young so I can bounce back a lot faster and just get my life back in order. Another con was I was worried that they were going to take it out and they wouldn't have found cancer at all, and it would have been for nothing, which sounds kind of silly to say. But it's true. I was really worried about that. I mean, I obviously I didn't want cancer, but I didn't want them to have taken it out for nothing. So I was really concerned about the timing about the whole thing. I didn't want to do it for nothing, essentially. Um, Mainly it was really just the battle of, do you want cancer or not? Like they told me, they basically said, you're going to get cancer, we just don't know when, like in your stomach, because you have this gene. So like it's just a matter of when you want to do it or if you want to get cancer
Right.
or not. So there wasn't too many pros or cons.
So I guess another way to ask it is, the doctors are telling you you're going to get stomach cancer. You should just get it removed. But I see here you did have 3 years of biopsies before you got it done. So what was it that prevented you from saying, okay, today let's
Mhm.
do the surgery. I know you mentioned you didn't want it to be taken out for nothing, but knowing
Right.
that it would happen at some point, what was keeping you from, was there going to be like a lifestyle change that you were dreading or?
Yeah. Well, I at first it was mainly because I was in school still and I really wanted to graduate college. So that was the main leading factor for the first year. After that, it was just fear, honestly. I was terrified of the surgery. I also still like believed I was too young. Like I still genuinely believed that. I thought that I was way too young for this. And I thought that I could wait until there I'm in a news article because they actually did a feature of me on the news and I look back at it and in the article or in the clip I say, yeah, I'm gonna get my stomach removed when I'm 30. So I look back at it and I'm wondering, why did I say 30 then and then I did it at 25? But I part of it was school and then it was fear and then it became more fear of actually having cancer. And then I don't know how to explain it. I was having some issues after my last biopsy. I mean, I was actually starting to have some issues with my stomach. They said it was gastritis. They didn't say it was stomach cancer. I don't know what it was, if it was either. But I was having some weird issues with my stomach. Like I wasn't able to drink like properly, like for a young adult. Like I was just having bowel issues. And I hate to say it, I had like a really gut feeling around the time when I decided to do it. I had like just a gut feeling that it was time. And I just decided that I was going to get it done eventually. I might as well put the fear aside and just do it.
Yeah, and actually, with the bowel movements and all those little signals, can you actually talk about what those were? I think people are just.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess it's like my bowels would like stomach bile, like when I would go to the bathroom instead of like actual feces being solid was something that would happen, which I thought was really weird. Um, it would happen randomly. I would get like an abnormal amount of like hemorrhoids from going to the bathroom too much. Um, I would get really bad, just like stomach pain when I drank. It actually, it kind of happened mostly around alcohol, but it also would happen with certain foods, but mostly it was alcohol related. So I kind of just believed them when they said it was gastritis. But it was odd. It was odd that stomach bile was coming out of areas it shouldn't be coming out. It was burning really bad. Like when it would come out, it was terrible. Um, and it would last for like a whole week. And I wouldn't know what caused it. I blamed it on like whatever alcohol I drank. If it was like something like one time I had a Red's apple ale and it was my birthday weekend. I drank it. I could not do anything that whole weekend. Like I literally had to basically wear like a diaper around because stomach acid was coming out of me. And it was stuff like that I thought was so weird. I don't know if it was the gastritis, which is what they say it was, or if it was actually the cancer, like giving me signs that, hey, I'm here. So looking back, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that was a sign, or it was the cancer giving me signs, or it was the gastritis. I'm not really sure, but
And
I
things were definitely off. So like when you say stomach bile, just some like acidic material would come out, and
yeah,
even in between going to the restroom, which is why you
yeah,
had okay.
yep.
And then the stomach pain you felt on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was it? Like, was it kind of?
It was more involving my like digestion. It wasn't so much stomach pain. I did get abnormal stomach pain sometimes. It wasn't terrible compared to like like menstrual like cramping. I blamed it on that sometimes. I would put it at like maybe a 5. It really wasn't that bad.
Okay.
Not in the stomach at least.
Okay, so it was more digestive pains.
Yeah.
So, and then before we get to the actual surgery part, the biopsy that you got each year before the surgery, can you describe in detail sort of what you went through for each biopsy?
Yeah, so you show up to the office, they take you back, they put an IV in you, they let you sign some papers saying that you acknowledge what's going on. Then essentially you get rolled away and put to sleep, and then you wake up and the doctor comes in and lets you know if he saw anything, or if he saw anything weird. He takes a bunch of little samples. He cuts little slits off your out of your stomach. But the thing is, the reason that they didn't catch mine, they don't go on the line. They can't cut a whole like chunk out of your stomach. So it was just chunks of the inside, not in the lining, not in between, which was where my cancer was. So when he was going in, cutting out all those pieces on the inside of my stomach, that's why they couldn't find it, I guess. I will say that when you come out of a biopsy, it does hurt. It does hurt because they're literally cutting little slits of your stomach out. Like, it's a little painful. It's not terrible, and it only lasts about 2 days of pain, but they do hurt. And after my last biopsy, that's when I started having the stomach bile happening like very regularly. So I don't know if the biopsy triggered something in my stomach, my last one at least. I'm not sure. But the doctor generally will give you the results for those in about 2 weeks. But they can honestly say if they saw anything abnormal. Like if you have it and it's bad enough, they'll be able to see it when they go in there for the biopsy. At least that's what they told me. So I had always had solid results. But yeah, you will have some discomfort when you wake up from it because, like I said, it's like it just hurts a little. Just from, I wouldn't like scale of 1 to 10. I would say maybe like if you're just sitting still and not eating, because like eating can disrupt it, but it was like a 3, about a 3. It's not that bad. It's just because they have to cut out little pieces, there is some pain associated with it.
Okay.
So
And do you have scars on your stomach from where they take the...
no, it heals itself because they're so small. They're just little slivers off the inside lining of your stomach that they take. And they do it in different regions. They'll explain it to you when you go in and show you like the different regions they plan on taking. For me, they took from a bunch of different places just because I have this gene. And they said that I had like a higher chance of having it. And so because of that, he took from more places. So my doctor was very aware of my situation and me having this mutation. So I think he took from 6 places, and I think they normally only do like 4. He might have done like 9, and the normal is 6, but I know he took from more from me in particular. But there's no scarring. No, it heals itself. It's just little, like I said, little slivers off the inside lining.
And you mentioned it took I mean, they could see if something was going to be very obviously wrong, but for the actual biopsy results, you said it took about 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Uh,
about 2 weeks.
that's a pretty long time to be waiting for results for a lot of
Yeah.
people. Can you describe maybe some advice to people? Because there's something called scanxiety. There's anxiety around waiting for any results. How did you best get through that time? And yeah, any tips to people on how to not get so anxious during that time or control the anxiety?
Yeah. Like I said, I had gotten really good at compartmentalizing. But just remember it's a biopsy, and it doesn't mean that you have it just because they do it. So, I mean, I hate to say it bluntly, if you have it, you're gonna find out you have it, and like it will change a lot. But there's a chance you don't have it. So, and the doctor that I was working with, he said that if it's severe enough, they can tell when they go in there. So he said that he would be able to notice something off. So usually the doctor will come talk to you afterwards. And if they say that it looked pretty clear, I wouldn't completely disrupt your life over it. I know that that's hard to take into consideration because everybody reacts to stress differently. Um, I just would say just stay as calm as you can. I mean, surround yourself with people who make you happy and do stuff that makes you happy, and just don't think about it until you actually are faced with the results.
Right. Okay. Got it. Thank you for sharing that. So then, Lauren, you go through your third biopsy. That's 2018.
Hmm.
What was it? So then was that around, like, do you remember what month in 2018 you were getting the
It
biopsy?
actually had skipped the year 2018, I'm pretty sure. Unfortunately, that was on my, because I was living in Mississippi, but all of my doctors were in Maryland. So I actually skipped 2018 because I just was living life and trying to ignore it in some ways. And I had gotten my biopsy done in March of 2019. My surgery was scheduled for June 12th of 2019. So this was kind of like the biopsy before the surgery. Um,
But it came back clean?
it came back completely clean.
And so it was just between March or right after that biopsy, things did start to happen. That was the catalyst for you, the trigger for saying, you know what, okay, I'm going to do the surgery.
I actually had already had my surgery scheduled.
Interesting.
So this was kind of just a preliminary thing. They were just going in to kind of see, like, I mean, it was I knew I was due for a biopsy, so I got one, even though my mom had said she thought it was kind of pointless because I was getting the surgery anyway. But I wanted to know ahead of time. I still was kind of on the fence about whether, am I getting this done for nothing? So I had had some symptoms with the gastritis before that biopsy, very few, very few. I had only had like the stomach bile happen once or twice before that biopsy. So it was happening before. So I don't know if it was, I know the biopsy triggered something because it got way worse afterwards. I don't know what happened while they were in there, but yeah,
Okay.
it came back clear. And it was only 3 months before my surgery. It might have been actually less than, well, March, April. Yeah, it was a little less. It was late March that I got it. So it
Yeah.
was less than 3 months before, and it came back 100% clear. They
Do you
said they didn't
remember,
find anything.
do you remember when you had scheduled the surgery?
Yes, I do.
What time, when was that?
Um, I remember the exact day, actually. It was my brother's birthday, the day that they called and gave me the date. Well, when I decided I was ready, is actually different from when I scheduled it.
Okay.
Because you have to, I'm sorry?
When did you decide that you were ready?
I decided November 2018. I don't know the exact day, but I decided in November of 2018 that I was going to do it.
Do you remember what specifically caused you to make that decision so formally that day?
I had graduated college. I wasn't in a very serious career at the time. I mean, I was in real estate, but I hated it. So I kind of was at a standstill in my life, and I felt like that would be the best time to do it. I also was like very fearful of getting cancer, and it was starting to take over my life in a way, to a point where I was so terrified. I just decided to do it so I could get the fear out of me.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for sharing that. So before your surgery, how are you doing? Are you feeling like really good about the fact that this is happening and or are you still trying to reconcile everything?
So I was a freaking mess, to be honest. I actually originally had planned to get the surgery done by one surgeon. I went and met with her, and my mom conference called in. And this is in March when I had gone home to get some testing done before. I went to go meet with my surgeon. So I was supposed to get it done by one surgeon I will not name. And to be honest, she didn't know what she was talking about. She said a lot of stuff that didn't make sense. She was saying I was too young. She was saying that she wasn't going to, when they take your whole stomach out, they put a little pouch in to help you keep food down. She was saying she wasn't going to put the pouch in. So my mom said, no, you're not getting it done, buy it from her. And I had a literal panic attack because that was my surgeon. I had my date scheduled already, like with her. So leaving her office, I was already a mess because I knew I was about to get my stomach removed. I had people doubting me. My husband doubted me. He questioned why I was doing it so young. My father did not believe it at all. He pretty much didn't believe the whole mutation was a thing and questioned me a lot too. I had a lot of questioning from my family, not my mom. My mom was really the only person who didn't question me because she had had it happen to her. And she was in the doctor's appointment when they told us that we're ticking time bombs. That's actually the exact words they used, ticking time bombs. It was kind of scary. Like, no one wants to hear that. So I had my surgery planned with that one surgeon. She didn't know what she was talking about. I freaked out. Like, it was awful. I had a complete meltdown because I had already told my broker at the realtor firm I was at the day I was going to have that surgery. My mom called Johns Hopkins, and that's where I ended up getting it done. And it was kind of funny. I know the exact day they called me. It was March 5th. It was my brother's birthday, actually, to reschedule. So, wait, that doesn't make sense. No, it couldn't have been March 5th. It might have been April 5th. It was April 5th. I'm sorry. And it was 1 month after my brother's birthday. So they called to reschedule, and I'm sorry, I have to backtrack a little bit. Okay, so when I was home and I met with that surgeon and it didn't go well, my mom called Johns Hopkins, and immediately they wanted to meet with me with their surgeon for this, like their gastrointestinal surgeon. So while I was home, I met with him too, and he was way more knowledgeable, and we ended up picking him. So they told me they would give me a call in a couple weeks, I guess, or pretty soon. They said about 2 weeks. And they were going to schedule the surgery. And I didn't realize, ironically, when they called me to reschedule it, it was the same date that I had scheduled with the other surgeon. I felt like that was like fate. I was meant to get it done on that day because I didn't even suggest that day to this other surgeon. They just called and said that day. It was really weird, actually. But if I'm talking about how I felt, yeah, it was freaking terrible. I'm not gonna lie. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. The day I found out, like they had officially scheduled the date at Johns Hopkins, like I was getting it done, like it was for sure going to happen. I remember getting really drunk. I could not deal with it. I couldn't. I was actually in the car with one of my coworkers, and I just started, I couldn't even control myself. I couldn't stop crying. I was like hyperventilating. I was taking my anxiety medication. I drove myself home. I got really drunk. And then a lot of the time leading up to the surgery, I just ate. They said to put on a lot of weight because you lose so much weight when you don't have a stomach. So I ate as much as I could, and honestly, I drank a lot of alcohol. I'm not gonna lie about that. I did drink a lot of alcohol before. So,
And that was to help you just sort of numb the fear,
yeah.
the anxiety. And this might sound like such an obvious question, but it would be great just to have you sort of delve into, like, what is it about the stomach surgery? It's just because it's such a major operation. You're nervous about
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Um, I didn't even know before I found out I had this that you could live without a stomach. So to say it out loud is one thing, but when you're actually on the schedule to get your stomach removed, that's another thing. Like that, when it becomes a reality, it's freaking terrifying. Like I'm 25. I was 25. I just turned 26 a few days ago. So I was 25, essentially the same age I am now. And I was about to get my stomach removed. A surgery that you could die from. Like, that's not completely insane. Like, you could die from this surgery. And then on top of that, there could be the complications. Like, I knew I had seen my mom get sick almost every day for a whole year after her surgery. And I didn't want to get sick. I didn't want to deal with that. There's this thing called dumping syndrome where you go to the bathroom uncontrollably because food moves through your intestines too quick. I didn't want to deal with any of that. I was terrified of the pain associated with the surgery. I feel like that's kind of obvious, honestly, but I was very, very scared it was going to hurt uncontrollably because I watched my mom go through it and it was uncontrollable for her. They did tell me I was going to have a nerve block, which I'm sure we'll talk about my surgery soon, but it was terrifying. thinking about having something so major, something that you literally use every day, taken out of your body. Like, that's crazy. I couldn't even fathom it, honestly. And I remember even up until the morning of my surgery, I still couldn't imagine living without a stomach until they were literally rolling me back. And then I was panicking.
Yeah.
And they gave me medication, obviously, to help me calm me down, but I couldn't even fathom it until they literally were rolling me back. And the doctor, which I'll get into that later, but yeah, until they were rolling me back, I couldn't fathom.
Let's get into it. That, you know, the day comes, it's June 2019, your day of
June
surgery.
12th, 2019.
And then they told you to eat a lot beforehand.
Yeah, so you lose a lot of weight, obviously. I put on like over 40 pounds before
Wow.
my surgery. Yeah, I was over
In like less than 3 months.
I actually started putting on weight before that because I knew it was coming. So around that previous November, because I got married, ironically, December. So 6 months before my surgery, I got married, and my wedding dress couldn't be altered. So I was very small, petite, the day of my wedding. So really, I only started putting on weight for 6 months, and I put on like over 30 pounds. I ate a lot of fast food and stuff. It was really bad for you, but they told me to do it. They encouraged it, actually.
Okay.
So
put on a lot of weight over some months, and then outside of that, did you have to do a cleanse before going into the surgery or no?
Actually, I just had to take some like a laxative, but it didn't even work. It was Miralax, which takes like a couple days to work sometimes. They didn't tell me that. I wish I would have known. So no, which was odd. I thought that was weird. I was like, what if there's like stuff in there? Which I don't know if that sounds silly, but someone else might be wondering it too. Somehow they can take it out without you having to do a cleanse. I thought the same thing. I was really weirded out by that.
Okay. But it did happen. And so you get into the surgery. Do you remember, so how long was the surgery?
Okay, so weirdly, mine was longer than it should have been. He said it would only take, I think he said like 6 hours max. Or I was in there longer because my surgeon actually got called into another surgery for an emergency. He had to leave my surgery at one point. I didn't know, obviously. My family apparently was like, what the hell? Like, you just left my dad apparently said to him, so you left my daughter? And my doctor said that he had to. So I was in there a lot. I was in there an extra 2 hours, I think. So I was in there, I think, a total of like 7 hours.
Okay, so that was an anomaly. Usually without a disruption, it's
About 5 hours, I think he said it would be. About 5 hours.
And then when you woke up, I mean, like, can you describe the recovery? How long you had to stay in the hospital, or what that was like?
Yeah. Well, going in, obviously, you're terrified. Waking up, I remember waking up. I actually remember my first moments of consciousness, which is weird when you're under anesthesia. Most people don't. I woke up in the ICU, and my family was surrounding my bed. I had a lot of family members there, actually. I had a good amount. So I think there were 6 people there for me, or 7. So my whole bed was surrounded with people, and they were only allowed back there for a few minutes, and then my husband was the only one allowed to stay. So, excuse my language, I hope nobody cares. When I woke up, I said, I did it. I fucking did it. Because I was awake, I was alive, and there was pain, but it was not unbearable. And I could not believe that I literally had just gone through with it. So I woke up in shock. I was just like, oh my gosh. I mean, the pain, yeah, it was bad. I mean, it was bad. Like, but was it something that people can't deal with? No. You'll be fine. They give you medication to help you. Like, the doctors want you to be as comfortable as possible. So when I was in the ICU the first night, I did fall asleep, and my husband, he fell asleep too, so I had nobody to press my medication button, because you have a little button that shoots like the Dilaudid or whatever into you, and it helps with the pain. So I fell asleep for about 8 hours, woke up excruciating pain. But once I called them in, the ICU people were like rushing with medication, and they helped me. I remember the first moments I walked. They had me up and walking within 24 hours of being out of surgery. I remember standing up for the first time, and I could feel the emptiness, and it was weird. It was weird. It felt like everything was like kind of shifting into place, because it was my first time that gravity was actually taking effect. And it was weird. It hurt. It definitely hurt to move. It was hard to move. I was walking so slow. But the fact that I was up and moving within 24 hours was pretty amazing. They were very surprised. My mom was not able to do that. But yeah, I was up and moving. So that was the first day. I was in the ICU, and then I got my room, and then I was in the hospital for another 6 nights. So I was there a total of 7 nights, which my mom was there for 10 for hers, but with mine, it was just 7. Being in the hospital sucked, to be honest. I mean, I had to get heparin shots, which is a blood thinner, twice a day, every day, and I was bruising so easily. It looked like I was like a rag doll when I left. I had bruises all up my arms and my legs. I mean, I literally had just lost my stomach. I couldn't, the first couple of days, you aren't allowed to eat or drink until they can make sure that the actual esophagus is like fully combined with your intestine. And to do that, they have to do an x-ray. So this is the worst part of it all. For me, at least, this was the worst moments. When I went down to go get the x-ray, they make you drink this like charcoal drink so that they can see what's inside. I guess it has charcoal in it or something like that. But it literally, I thought I was going to throw it up all over the text. Like, and they kept messing up too. I remember they had trainee people in there, so I had to get up and down off that table like 4 times. I had just had my stomach removed. It was my 3rd day out. I hadn't drank any water, and here I am sucking down like a charcoal slushy. And it was the worst thing I have ever. That was probably the taste is undescribable, and I will not sugarcoat that moment for anybody. It is the worst. But the fact that I'm saying that is the worst moments for me in the hospital, I think says a lot. I mean, my surgeon did a really good job. It was laparoscopic, so he didn't fully cut me open. He did multiple incisions. So I guess the pain wasn't as bad, although my nurse had told me that laparoscopic, you have a lot more gas in there because they have to pump you up with gas to see with the cameras. So I was bloated really bad. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't a fun experience being in the hospital. I hated being there. I mean, by the time I left, I was able to eat soup.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So yeah, you're not allowed to eat or drink for the first 48 hours or so.
Yeah.
And then after that, they slowly start introducing liquids in?
Yes.
Okay.
So it started with just liquids, just like water, orange juice, apple juice for like my blood sugar and stuff. And I happily accepted all the liquids. And I wasn't hungry anyways. So it didn't bother me that I hadn't eaten. And it was around day 5 when they were like, okay, you can eat food. And I was like, oh. They tried to give me an Ensure, and I almost threw it up.
A little smoothie type drink, right?
Yeah, I almost threw it up. So, ever since my surgery, I've had an issue with lactose. Like anything involving lactose, like milk even, I cannot drink milk. So I found that out in the hospital, like really early on. I've tested it since then. It still is terrible. So them giving that to me at that time, it was awful. But I was able to eat a little bit of some soup, and I could eat they had sherbet, little things of sherbet, and I apparently was like, I ate those really easily. I was able to like not ice cream, but sherbet and like sorbet, stuff like that. I
Without
could
any
handle.
lactose. And then what else were they monitoring you for? I'm hearing physical recovery, like they wanted to make sure you could walk. So you were
Mm,
working on that. They wanted to
yeah.
make sure you could eat. And were they checking for your bowel movements as well to make sure everything was functioning properly?
Yeah, I actually didn't have a bowel movement in the hospital. They called me once a week for about 3 weeks after, and the nurse who called would ask like if I had a bowel movement, and I had at that point after leaving, but when I was in the hospital I didn't have a single one. So
Okay.
they didn't know, but through the x-ray they could see that everything was intact and working properly, but I just didn't go to the bathroom in the hospital.
Okay, right. And okay, so do you remember why they decided to let you to discharge you? What was the main factors in saying, okay, Lauren, you're ready to go home?
Um, doctors who were overwatching me, because my surgeon would only come and see me, like I saw him maybe twice after the surgery because he wasn't really in charge, but they would come in and basically ask me, what's your pain level? How are you doing? Are you eating? Are you able to eat? Are you walking? How much can you walk? And I was able to walk a lot. Like I was walking. So the hospital's in little quarters, like it's a circle. The little floor I was on, I could do like 8 laps if I really want. Like I was walking like a pretty good amount. Um, they were very impressed at how quickly I was like able to move, and the fact that I was doing a lot of things on my own. I could go to the bathroom on my own. I was I was doing pretty well. They were pretty surprised. I mean, I think I remember the 6th night I was there, or the night before my last day, which the 6th night, I was mad that they were keeping me because they had said that they might have let me out on the 6th day, but they didn't. They kept me until the 7th. So, but
Okay, yeah. And so it sounds like you made great progress, which is
yeah.
wonderful. And then do you have any, I guess, advice, tips for people on like how to make the hospital stay more bearable? What you wish you had known at the time, or
The don't sleep as much as you can, because there will be a tech in your room at midnight doing some vitals, and it's really annoying changing your IVs. I think the worst thing about the hospital is just be ready for a lot of needles. As bad as that sounds, if you don't like needles, like I have never had a problem with them really. I mean, I don't love them, but I didn't have an issue. I got a lot of shots, a lot of IV changes, a lot of, yeah, don't expect the food to be good because it's not. I can tell you that right now. The food sucks.
but
I had someone, I'm sorry.
the fact that like these are the top things, I think is hopeful probably for people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think that, I don't know. I mean, I can tell I'm blue in the face, like it's not as painful as I thought it was going to be. Like it really isn't. And I actually don't feel like I have a super high tolerance for pain. I mean, I did get my tonsils removed when I was in 4th grade and I was fine, but it really wasn't the pain I was expecting at all. I was expecting much worse.
Okay. That's good. That's good to hear. And so when did you find out the results of, they'd taken out your stomach and that's when they actually figured out that there was cancer present? How long after?
Right. Um, I believe it was originally supposed to be 7 days after, if I believe correctly, but my surgeon was out of town. He went to a conference, so it got moved back to, it was about 9 days after I had been discharged from the hospital. So about 2 weeks after the surgery in total. And he didn't call so my husband was with me, and I just had a gut feeling that I was like, I have cancer. And I'm kind of a pessimist, to be honest. So my husband's like, you don't have cancer. Like, they're calling you in. They haven't said anything. Like, you're fine. You definitely don't have it. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, like, I have a feeling I definitely had it. And he was like, I don't think you had it. And so we're sitting in the waiting room, like arguing about it, like right before I get called back. So Yeah, it took about 2 weeks. So do you want to hear about the appointment?
Well, I mean, so is the appointment just to hear about the results, or was it for vitals
It
check?
was a little more. So it went down. It was kind of an emotional appointment. He called me back and he's like, "Do you have any questions?" And I'm like, "Obviously, did you find cancer in my stomach?" And he just goes, "Yeah, we found cancer in 3 places." And I just started sobbing. I knew it. I knew it. I had a feeling. I had a feeling in November the year before that I had it. I knew it. I like literally I knew it. But he was confused as to why I was crying, and I'm like, "Why are you confused as to why I'm crying? Like, this is terrible. Like, do I have to get more testing done? Like, did it spread? Am I okay? Like, do I need chemo? Do I need do I need help?" And he's like, "No." He said the areas were so small and they're stage 1. He was like, they were all in the lining of your stomach. It did not spread. He was like, "We caught it just in time." And I said, "If I hadn't come in and gotten it done when I did, how long would I have had?" And he said that you would have known, that I would have at least known that I had it within a year. So
Meaning like it spreads quickly, or it's
it spreads super. This type of cancer, they call it. I don't know what type of cancer exactly it is, but they keep saying this type of cancer spreads really fast and in the lining of your stomach, which is why it's so dangerous. He said I would have for sure known that I had cancer within a year. So, and he said, and I think I asked him, I said, would I have made it to 27? And he was like, "There's no way to know exactly, but probably not."
oh.
So,
So, I mean, that's like a whole jumble of emotions, right? Like you find out
yeah.
you had cancer, but it is out and you're okay now, according to the doctor. So, like, was it a mix of feelings after that? Like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, I'm so happy that I had it done, or
Yeah. Um, I hate to say no, I wasn't happy. Unfortunately. I was I was upset. I was sad. I was really scared. I was scared it spread and maybe he was wrong. Maybe he was wrong about that. Like maybe it did spread. I called my mom. I was worried about my sister, who's younger than me, who has not had the procedure done. I didn't realize I'm the youngest person in my family at this point in history to have had cancer. I was traumatized. I did not see any positive to it at all. I mean, my husband did. He was like, "Well, they got it out in time. What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I had cancer. Like how does somebody just deal with that?" It was terrible.
yeah, it's yeah, like a lot to swallow in that moment, and yet everyone else around you is saying, "Great, like this is wonderful." So, I guess how did that appointment end? Like, did they say now you have to do these routine checkups, or
Yeah, I asked him, he said no. He was like, we got it. He literally held my hand and said, "We did it just in time." He's like, you're good. Like, he's like, "You don't need any." He's like, "If you honestly want to get a follow-up appointment because you're super paranoid," he's like, "I understand." And he's like, "We can make that happen if you want to make sure it didn't spread." But he's like, "I know it didn't spread." And he's like, "We got it."
so he was saying if you want to get like another scan done at some
Mhm.
point. So
A CAT scan.
did you get another scan?
I thought about it, but no, I didn't.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
And how do you and then so how do you feel now? I mean, so there's no follow-up. Now you've had time to process what happened.
Um, I'm glad I did it when I did. That was, I guess, a good decision. I still worry about getting breast cancer. I have to get my breasts done. I have to get a double mastectomy as a preventative surgery, which I plan to do before I'm 30 because now I know cancer doesn't discriminate against age, and I always knew that, but I especially know it because it's happened to me, and so I don't want to take a chance with my breasts, and so since I have to get those done, I want to get them done before I'm 30. So there is still a part of me that is living in that moment, that is living in fear, that is still reminded that cancer could still very much happen to you, and that sucks. It sucks. So there is still some of me that is living what I was living before the surgery because I still have another one to go.
Yeah, and first of all, I really admire just like all that you've been through, how you're still able to come out, share your story, and be, that sort of beacon for other people. Like, hey, you're on, the other side. But I hear you. I mean, maybe when you were told you had cancer, it solidified something about this gene for you. Wasn't
Yeah.
just about the stomach cancer. It was like,
Yeah. Um, I think it was mostly my age.
mhm.
Um, I didn't I didn't realize, like, I really didn't think that this would happen to me, but then again, nobody ever thinks it would happen to them. I didn't think I would have the gene in the beginning. So I actually didn't tell anybody. I told my close friends that I had close people closest to me and only one of my friends that they had found cancer for about 2 months after the results. And then I finally made an Instagram post about it. And then I actually started blogging about my like recovery, and I've met so many people who have the same gene as me just by doing that. So I'm surprised because when in the beforehand, I wouldn't even look at people who had it because I didn't want that negativity in my life, or at least I called it negativity. But now I turned into like that person that wants to share my story because I don't want somebody to be as uninformed as I was. So,
Yeah, that's powerful. And actually, before I forget, with since the surgery last June 12th,
mhm.
how has your lifestyle changed, if at all, I guess?
Yeah, it's changed. It's changed. I cannot eat sweets. I can't do sweet stuff. I can't drink my Starbucks anymore. Can't do it. I get this thing called dumping syndrome. It's really awful. Uh, which they'll tell you about if you have to get a total gastrectomy. Um, my diet is different. I eat more so smaller meals throughout the day rather than 3 meals. I eat like 6 small meals a day in comparison. It's like I said, I have an issue with lactose. I can't do anything like milk. I can do milk in moderation, like in cereal, but sometimes it'll make me super sick. I would say that I don't still throw up, but I threw up last week or a couple days ago, so it does still happen. It's rare now, but there was about 3 or 4 months that I was throwing up almost every day following the procedure. So like I couldn't keep anything down. Like I would eat dry Cheerios, like 5 of them, and then I'd throw them right up. So it was a hard recovery. I'm not gonna lie. The recovery is worse than the procedure. Like you're still, I don't care what anyone says. Like I mean, maybe some people, they say you don't get hungry if you don't have a stomach. No, you're hungry and you still crave the foods that you like ate before, and you still want them. I remember I mean, it was a bad idea, but I did it. I ate Wendy's chicken nuggets about like 3 months after my procedure. I threw them all up. I can't even look at Wendy's chicken nuggets the same anymore. It was terrible. I was over the toilet for like an hour, and it's a lot. I guess I wrote a whole like blog article about it one time, and it's called Trial and Error. That's what they tell you. Everything after the surgery is trial and error. Like you are gonna eat some stuff, it's gonna make you freaking sick, but you have to eat it to know what you're able to eat because everyone is different. I've come across people who can eat donuts and like drink coffee and stuff, and I can't do that. I cannot eat donuts. I can't do sweets at all. My
It's
mom,
very
however, she can.
individual. It's very individual response in terms of what
Yeah,
your body will digest.
everyone is different. Everyone is completely different with it.
But I like that trial and error. And we'll link to your blog and stuff so people can definitely get even more support.
Yeah. I
Like,
haven't blogged in a while, I will admit. It was more of an initial blog for like my initial recovery,
mhm.
like right after I was when I was first adjusting. In those first couple months is when I was really doing it. I haven't done it in a long time. Only because I've been I've been fine. I mean, I've been a lot better. I stopped getting sick every day, but for a while there was a time that I was getting sick every single day. So I was blogging about, what I was going through. And I did have some people who were reading it, but as I got better, I just kind of stopped doing it because I no longer feel like I'm fresh out of surgery. I'm kind of almost close to my 1 year mark. So
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you. Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that obviously it's a hard thing to swallow, major surgery, but you got through it. The pain was manageable. And then, yes,
Mhm.
you got home and there was trial and error and you're having to refigure out what life is like. But look at you, like you've done it.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Stuff happen. Like you do have some hair loss. I will admit that. But then again, I didn't lose all my hair. I mean, this is literally the same hair I went into my surgery with, and it's fake blonde. I am going back to my brown color, my roots, but that's just because it's thinning out. It's not as strong as it was before, but I'm also not getting the nutrients I were before. And then I also have to take certain vitamins. I have to give myself a B12 shot every month, which is weird, having to give yourself a shot. So there are small things like that you have to adjust to that are hard
And
and
that
weird.
B12 shot do you do it in the stomach or do
I
you?
actually do it in my leg. It can be done anywhere because it's like a I think it's called like intermuscular or something like
Mhm.
that. So you can do it anywhere, but I do it in my leg just because I have the best viewpoint on my leg and I can see what's going on. So I actually do it on like the side of my leg, like my outer thigh.
Any tips for people if they have to do it?
Yeah. If you don't like needles, just get your doctor to do it. Your primary physician, you can go in once a month and get them to do it. But I actually use a diabetic needle, so it's smaller. Um, and it's really not bad. I don't think it's bad, but then again, I feel like after you get your stomach taken out and like having to go through all of the doctor's appointments and the needles and the blood work and all that, like I don't know if you'll be scared of needles anymore after it. At least I'm not. So I just do it to myself with a diabetic needle on my leg, and it's really not a big deal. I just do it once a month. I mean, I just did one like a week ago.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that part too. And to wrap on my end anyway, I know with the CDH1, you still have the breast cancer concern, but you've made the decision. You're going to do a double mastectomy. Is
Yep.
there anything you want to say? I know there are probably other women in particular, right, who might be concerned about that, making that decision for themselves. It's a personal decision, but
Yeah.
how have you processed it to a point where you feel good about it?
I don't want to get cancer. And that's just me. I mean, everybody, like my mom hasn't even gotten her breast done, and she's over 50, and she says that she doesn't think she's going to. But since I've already had cancer, I'm 25. The odds really don't seem to be in my favor when it comes to my health. I don't know why. But I have like switched to, natural deodorant because deodorant can cause breast cancer. But in the end for me, like when it comes down to it, I don't want to suffer from cancer. Like that's just me. And if you're willing to just I know that breast cancer is more easily detectable. So if you're willing to just get the testing done and keep up with it, like that's great and I admire you, but like I'd rather just get it done because they give you implants. It's basically just the boob job. So for me, that's just how I think of it, and I would just rather get it done and not have to worry about it because my anxiety is terrible revolving around it. So
So then the last question I have is, what's your message to other people more than even just the gastric cancer piece? It's, I think, this gene, right?
yeah.
CDH1, this um, has deeply impacted your life. And so um, how would you talk to other people who have it in terms of, look, like it's not the best news, obviously, but you can still live a very full life and make decisions to move forward the way you want to.
Yeah. Sorry if I get emotional. It feels like the end of the world. It did for me, at least. I felt like I don't know, there was times I thought about like killing myself, like when I first thought I had it, which is terrible. And it's not worth it. It's not worth, it's not, it's, it's honestly not that bad. And like, it does suck. And sometimes I still say like, man, God, I wish I had a stomach so I could drink my Starbucks and not get sick. Or I could eat this and not get sick, or I could have milk, because it sucks. Like, I still cry about it all the time, like as I am right now. Like, I literally cried, I think day before yesterday, to my husband saying, I just don't understand why I have to live like this. But in a way, we're blessed, because now we don't have to suffer through stomach cancer. Like, and that literally is like, I've done research, I've seen it's one of the like worst cancers, like suffering wise. I'm not saying like in comparison to anyone else's suffering, like I know all suffering from cancer is terrible, but I've seen like pain wise, I've read it's one of the worst. And yeah, we have like, there's other cancers involved with this gene, which I think makes it so freaking terrible, and what makes it so scary. And it is scary. It's scary. But as one of my doctors, who I'm still like pretty good friends with, I actually call her. She's the one who asked me to do this. She told me to put my big girl pants on, because a lot of people have it worse, and I'll be okay. And here I am talking to you in this video, and I'm okay.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Is there anything else that you want to share, or um, you want to tell people?
Um, I guess, is my last name gonna be on there?
I mean, it's up to you. We do have, yeah, we do have people share their full
Yeah,
name.
yeah, if you want, just find me on social media. And if you have any questions, like I do advocate for some people who do have the gene, who have reached out to me, who are also young, but some of them are middle age. I guess another thing I'll add is, if you're a woman with the gene, you might think about children. Can't It's really hard to have a child without a stomach, so I probably won't be having a kid. But that's okay. I mean, my sister just had a baby, and she decided to do it before. I guess I just have to say, just try to find the silver lining. It's there. I mean, you'll find something to be grateful for during this. I mean, I don't, it's hard to talk about, but you know, it becomes your life. Like, you get so used to it, it's kind of just something you talk about.
Yeah, and I hope it's empowering you to know that you're helping other people.
Yeah, I never ever thought that I would be the person talking to other people about this, because I literally used to roll my eyes at those people and say, wow, like, you're only saying that because you've already had the surgery done, or you're only saying that because your surgery went well, or you can eat donuts, I can't. But doesn't matter. I mean, none of it matters. Like, I feel like resources like this are so great, because the people who are actually not hard-headed like I was, and who are willing to listen to what other people have to say, and like actually take the advice and like prepare properly, instead of compartmentalizing and partying and doing drugs and stuff like that, like I did, you will have a much better experience than I did. And I really never thought that I would be the person to be giving advice to anybody about this, because I was so against looking into advice about this. But I'm glad that I am, and if I can help anybody in any way, I want to. So
Lauren, thank you so much. We're so happy you're now part of the Patient Story like family, and we'll definitely link to your social and anything else for people to find you. So thank you for sharing your story.
you're welcome.